Nearly 2 years ago, 28 Idaho Republican lawmakers sent a letter to Boise State University calling the school's efforts to address gender-based violence, to create inclusivity, diversity, and equality on campus. They called those efforts disconcerting. It made those lawmakers uncomfortable. They said those programs cost more money, resulted in segregation, that they divided people into groups, and goes against the Idaho way. Now, that was back in July of 2019. So fearing their voices haven't been heard since then, some of those same lawmakers are now making the money speak for them. Idaho's legislature sets budgets for the state. Probably know that, including state schools like Boise State. And this year, BSU has seen its budget shrink by more than $400,000 because lawmakers don't want Boise State using state funds to push a perceived social justice ideology, complete with courses and messaging on campus. That budget still needs to be approved by both the Senate and the House, but we wanted to know how BSU felt about a deep cut like this and what that would mean for the campus.
We do not want to appropriate funds. We don't want funds expended for courses, programs, services, or trainings that confer support for extremist ideologies, such as those tied to social justice, racism, Marxism, socialism, or communism.
That was the message from Representative Priscilla Giddings during a budget hearing last week for Idaho higher education. The Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee voted in agreement on the sentiment. As a result, Boise State was targeted with a budget cut.
Line 3, which reduces $409,000 for Boise State University to remove state-supported social justice programming.
When you're talking about 30,000 students and 2,700 employees, that's a tough impact to take.
Boise State President Dr. Marlene Tromp says even with other sources to fund the university, like tuition and student fees, the cut hurts.
What dollars translate to in a university most often is people. And so $409,000 is a significant figure because that's a lot of potential people's salary.
President Tromp says she wants lawmakers to know the university hears their concerns about curriculum and programs on campus, but she's not sure they have the full picture. Tromp says she's talked with critics of Boise State's programming about the environment on campus.
Some people have called it a marketplace of ideas. They're actually quite comfortable with the idea that students are introduced to a full range of ideas from the left and the right. They just want to ensure that all of those positions are being represented. And that's something that matters to all of us. We want to really ensure that students feel like a variety of different perspectives are available to them. And we think that's often very true. And where we don't see that, we want to address it.
We should be defunding the social justice, critical race theory agendas and programming that are being advanced on our college campuses using public monies.
Representative Ron Nate's comments in committee have drawn support from those who believe Boise State is using state money to push an agenda in line with Boise State's diversity, equality, and inclusion initiatives. Trump hears the concerns, but says there's something important to clarify.
First of all, what we aim to do at Boise State is teach people how to think, not what to think. That's really fundamental to what a university is.
Trump says she very much wants to have a collaborative relationship with Idaho lawmakers that includes critical discussions. She admits she hasn't made the progress she had hoped to on that front because of the reality of living through a pandemic over the last year.
So not to make excuses, but it seems like there's just this disconnect right now between lawmakers and the university. And it seems that it's kind of exacerbated by how we connect right now. Is that fair?
I would say that's true. And it has been a grief for me not to spend more time down at the Capitol this year, because a lot of the questions that people have raised in legislative meetings, I could have answered and would have been so happy to answer.
Trump says contrary to criticism of her and the university, she does deeply care about what Idahoans and legislators think about what happens at Boise State. She says no excuses. She wants to make that more clear to those in doubt.
I'm really going to have to give a lot of attention to our legislators so I can answer their questions directly, but also really reach out to folks in the state so that they understand what our goals are, what our aims are, and what we're doing here on campus. I think that there has been a misperception that there's only a certain set of ideas that are being taught at Boise State. And in fact, Boise State is this rich and complex environment with so many different ideas. And I think they would be delighted by many of the things they saw. They would disagree with others, and they would see our students and our faculty and staff in dialogue about those ideas.
All right, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but that $409,000, basically about, well, less than 1% of Boise State's overall budget of $240 million. So what does that compare? What about the other budgets for Idaho's other public universities and colleges? Are they also facing cuts?
Well, actually, the state higher education budget overall, Brian, is actually up. That about $400,000 from Boise State's budget is actually going to Lewis and Clark State College. So the overall budget is actually going up. We're just seeing Boise State getting a cut there. You make a good point, though, Brian. I asked Dr. Tromp about that. In the overall scheme of things, is this a lot of money? And she says every dollar counts at this point, especially during these times. And she also pointed out that a lot of private money that would traditionally come into Boise State, well, some of these private companies and donors, they're hurting too right now. It is tough financial times. So again, every dollar counts. Brian, again, all of the higher education appropriations, they have to pass the House and the Senate. We saw last year that the appropriation budget in the House got kind of stuck. So we'll see if this is actually the final version of the education budget that gets passed by Governor Little.
All right, so let's keep an eye on this, Joe, and see where this ends up. Thank you very much.